Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Side of Virginia. As always, it's so good to be together with you here today. And before our initial prayer, we're going to read a message from the book Happy Life by the loving spirit Joana de Angelis through the hands of the mediumship of Divaldo Franco. The message for us today, friends, can be found on page 105. And Joana de Angelis inviting us to reflect on the following. Rein in the impulses that result from ungoverned instincts. Act under the command of reason. It is true that good sentiments must melt the ice of rational logic, but oftentimes indifference or aggression need the vigilance of reason. Brain and heart must work together, providing the advantages of both balance and moderation for a healthy life. Listen with your heart and act with your reason, each in appropriate measure. So, this is the message for all of us today, friends. Let us reflect and go to our initial prayer.
Okay, friends, so let us talk with God together. It's so good to know that God knows of us and that we can talk with God, and we may not see God, but we feel God. Let us breathe in and out and be thankful for life. Dear God, we are so happy to be here together, cherishing our immortality. We are grateful that you are always providing to us renewed opportunities to learn and to progress. We visualize your loving messengers, the spirit educators, the doctors, nurses, and therapists who are here to assist us in our growth. And we pray for everyone in our lives, for loved ones who could not come here with us, for those who have their names in the book of prayer. And we visualize a world of kindness, of patience, of harmony and tolerance. And so be it. Yes, yes. It feels and myself will be there with you guys while Daisy was gonna be here to tell us other important things. All right, friends, let's go. Hey, dear friends, morning. How you guys? Good. Okay. Well, today the mentors want us to dive deeper into this topic of inner inertia. What is this inner inertia? We might be asking ourselves, right? Okay, we all heard, especially our kids, but adults as well. I'm bored. Right? Is that the number one? Yeah, most of the time. Okay, but how about us, dear friends? How about us in our lives, especially in our relationships? Today is going to be all about relationships. Why? On Fridays, we're studying the book here, Workers of the Life Eternal. And Angele says the following, that we die according to how we live. So we watch the movie No Solar or we read the book and we're like, oh, I want to go to a spiritual colony like No Solar. So beautiful. But how are we living now? Because, thank you, Carlos, sharing the screen. Okay, let's try one more time, friends. It's working. Oh, keep an eye. That's it. So if we die as we live, the question is, how are we living? Because if in our relationships we have feelings of boredom, dissatisfaction, we're dissatisfied, we're discontent, we feel frustrated, we feel the disengagement, the indifference. And we're talking today especially about our partners, our relationships at home, our romantic relationships. Because if that's how we're feeling, when we discarnate, do we think we're gonna go to no solar and all of a sudden feel so good and so happy? So it's why it's important for us to reflect on how we're living to determine what's gonna happen in the afterlife. So before we go deeper, we're gonna hear about a case that's in this book, Heaven and Hell. Yes, the name is might not be inviting at first, but it's right there. Why Kardec brings us this book? In the first part, he talks all about our discarnation, our death. Does that hell exist? That's a question Kardec asked their spirits. What happens in the afterlife? And then in the third part, we get to part two, actually. We get to hear about actual cases that came in Kardec's time in the mediumistic meeting. Case of spirits who discarnated and come back to tell us what happened in the afterlife. So if we want to know what's going to happen in the afterlife, there are many cases in this book. And Kardec has a great educator. He organized in different types of spirit just for the purpose of better organizing the book for us. And in this chapter, chapter 7 of part 2, is all about hardened spirits. Spirits, as he explains to us, they're not evil, quote unquote, in the eyes of society, what we see nowadays. Did they commit any big crimes? We'll hear the case today. In the eyes of society, no. But their afterlives was not pretty. Why? Let us hear the case of Angele, and then we're gonna discuss it together, okay? So let's see if this works. Thank you, Camila.
Angele. Uselessness on Earth, Bordeaux, 1862. A spirit presented itself spontaneously to the medium under the name Angele. Have you repented for your wrongs?
No.
Then why have you come?
To try to do so.
Aren't you happy then?
No.
Are you suffering?
No.
Then what do you lack?
Peace.
While admitting that their mental state is unbearable, some spirits consider suffering to be only that which reminds them of physical pain. How is it that you lack peace in the spirit life?
Regret of the past.
Regret of the past means remorse. Have you repented then?
No, it is for fear of the future.
What are you afraid of?
The unknown.
Would you be willing to tell me what you did during your last existence? Perhaps that would help me to enlighten you.
Nothing.
What was your social position?
Middle class.
Were you married?
I was a wife and mother.
Did you zealously fulfill the duties of both positions?
No, my husband and kids bored me.
How did you spend your life?
Entertaining myself as a young girl, getting bored as a young woman.
What were your occupations?
None.
Who looked after your house?
The maid.
Isn't it in this uselessness that you might find the cause of your regrets and fears?
Maybe you're right.
Agreeing is not enough. Would you like to atone for that useless existence by helping the guilty spirits suffering around us?
How?
By helping them improve themselves with your counsels and prayers.
I don't know how to pray.
We will do it together. You will learn. Would you like to?
No.
Why not?
It's tiresome.
Instructions by the Medium's Guide.
We teach you by showing you the various degrees of suffering and the position of spirits condemned to expiation according to their wrongs. Angele was one of those individuals without initiative, whose lives are as useless to others as to themselves. Loving only pleasure, incapable of seeking an education, and in the fulfillment of her familial and social duties, lacking those satisfactions of the heart that make life so appealing because they belong to all ages. She was unable to spend her youth on anything but frivolous distractions. And when more serious obligations arose, the world was empty around her because she had placed emptiness into her heart. Committing no serious wrongs, but displaying no special qualities either, she made her husband miserable, compromised her children's futures, and ruined their well-being by her negligence and indifference. She perverted their hearts and judgment by her example, and by abandoning them to the care of household servants, whom she hadn't even put forth the effort to choose. Her life was unfruitful, and therefore blameworthy, for evil originates from neglecting the good. You must all understand that it is not enough to abstain from error. You must also practice the virtues that oppose it. Study the Lord's teachings, meditate on them, and understand that although they may present a barrier that detains you on the edge of the evil path, they force you at the same time to retreat and take the opposite path that leads you to the good. Evil is opposed to the good. Thus, those who wish to avoid evil must choose the opposite path. Otherwise, their life becomes useless, their works are dead, and God, our Father, is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living.
May I ask what Angele's next to last existence was?
She lived in beatific indolence and the uselessness of the monastic life. Lazy and selfish by nature, she next wanted to try out family life, but her spirit had evolved very little. She continually rejected the inner voice that showed her the danger, and since sliding down the slope was gentle, she preferred to abandon herself to it instead of making an effort to stop herself at the beginning. Presently, she still understands the danger involved in maintaining herself in such neutrality, but she doesn't feel the strength to attempt the least amount of effort to leave such a condition. Pray for her, awaken her, and force her eyes to open to the light. It is a duty. Do not neglect any duty. Human beings have been created to be active. The activity of the spirit, that is their essence. The activity of the body, that is a necessity. Therefore, fulfill the requirements of existence as a spirit destined to eternal peace. Since your body is meant to serve you, it is nothing more than a machine subordinate to your intelligence. Work to cultivate your intelligence so that it may provide a healthy impulse to the instrument that must aid it in the fulfillment of its task. Grant it neither rest nor repose, and keep in mind that the peace to which you aspire will only come after work. Thus, the more you neglect work, the longer the anxiety will be for you while waiting. Work, work without stopping. Fulfill all your duties without exception. Fulfill them with zeal, with courage, with perseverance, and your faith will uphold you. Those who consciously perform the most ungrateful and vile tasks in your society are 100 times more elevated in the eyes of the Omnipotent than those who impose such roles on others while neglecting their own. They are all steps to be climbed toward heaven. Don't crush them beneath your feet. Know that you are surrounded by friends who are reaching out to you and who uphold those who put their strength in the Lord. Mono.
So let us reflect on Angele. We might hear her case and think, oh, but I'm nothing like her. I take care of my family, I provide, I go to work, I educate my children, right? But let us reflect on fulfilling this duty. In her case was of wife and mother, but in our relationships, whatever relationships we have, in the relationship with our partners, in our relationship with our parents, with our children, are we fulfilling those duties? Why is it important for us? It's not about checking the list. Oh, I pay the bills, I provide. It's all about the feelings. And that's all we are talking about today. Because we might be there physically in the home, but our minds, we are somewhere else. We are there taking care of the children. We're there talking with the partner, with the spouse, but our feelings are not really there because we are, like we saw in the first slide, we are disenchanted, we're bored, we feel like, oh, it's all about the spark at the beginning of the relationship. But then as we move forward, we lose that spark. It's normal. Emmanuel explains to us that at the beginning, when we meet someone, there needs to be that spark, that enchantment, because if not, we will not have marriages on earth, right? Because who are the people that we encounter? If we stop and think, that's why it's the beauty of TV nowadays, not the bad TV. I'm talking about having access to so many series because we get a glimpse of how was life in a few centuries ago. And then we can see who were we. So we watch those series, whatever it is in the 1600s, 1700s. At that time, there were two classes. Either we were high class, right? You were born, girls were born to do what? To prepare themselves for marriage, right? Mhm. Yeah. So they did, right? She stayed at home waiting, right? Preparing herself. In the meantime, what were the activities? Gossip, right? Looking at, and were marriages out of love? No, right? They were out of convenience, right? Oh, you have to marry that duke, that so and so, because their status, women couldn't, right, carry the finances of the home. And men were what? They would get married because their family status, yeah. And then what we see in those series, extramarital affairs, right? People were there. So who are those people? Are we talking about the neighbor? It's always about the neighbor. Nice, the neighbor. I was not doing that. It is, maybe that friend in my life, but no, not us. So either we were that, or what were the other class? The lower class, right? There was no middle class. We were the servants, but the servants, ooh, oh my gosh, were the servants just there, so happy to serve, right? No, the servants were the ones creating all the drama, right? Taking the gossip back and forth, right? Having their fairs, yeah, having their fairs. So, so why is it important for us? Because that opened our eyes. So this is probably the first life that we have a chance to build a family for the quote unquote right reasons, or encounter those people who in the past we betrayed, we broke their hearts, and now we encounter them again. So we will go back to Angel, but let us first go to talking about what is the purpose of this encounter on earth. Marriage is so important. It is in the Spirit's book. Why wouldn't the Spirits address it? They say having multiple partners, we're back to the animal kingdom. So in the human kingdom, we are here to have these monogamous relationships, to get married, to construct a family. So in this book, Life and Sex by Emmanuel, this book, it's so beautiful. It's like a manual for relationships. We studied this book in depth here on Fridays, I believe 3 years ago now. But it's all on Kardec Radio. Go there. There's a whole chapter. Chapter 7 is all about marriage, but there are so many other chapters that talk about the family, children, relationships. And there, Emmanuel tells us that we say marriage, right? It's this permanent union of two beings, because we can be living with someone and in a serious relationship, and marriage is the contractor reading, but we are there in a relationship. So he says that this permanent union of two beings obviously implies the regime of living by which two beings entrust themselves to each other in the field of mutual assistance. Okay, so this is key for us. If we want to succeed in relationships, we need to understand that relationships is about helping one another, helping our partners to be the best of themselves. How does love start? Because we start with infatuation, right? Well, first comes the physical attraction, usually, right? Then the infatuation. But then how do we go from that chemistry to love? Because love is to love the person as they are, not as the image we project. Because we want to love the perfect person, right? They don't do any wrongs. They don't leave the towel on the bed, right? Yes. Oh, yes. For us women, they put the seat down, the toilet seat down, right? Uh, we're joking the small things, but it's the hard things, right? We want someone who is understanding, who's loving for us. But are we loving and understanding of them? Because it's easy for us to want a perfect partner, but we know on earth perfect partner doesn't exist. So for us to reach that love is to love the person as they are with their imperfections, with their shortcomings. So how? We start with the infatuation, but then comes this admiration. To get there, we need to admire our partner. So if we don't have that admiration, let's go back and say, okay, what are the good qualities? Because we're so easy to point the defects, but how are we going to build this mutual assistance if all we see is the shortcomings of others? They don't do this, they don't take out the trash, they do that and other, and then we are all pointing the bad qualities. So how are we gonna build that love if we don't admire? So let us build that admiration and think, okay, I'm here to support my partner, this mutual assistance. So they have a dream. Let's that become our dream. Why can we not dream it together? They want to accomplish something. If it's something, good, let us support our partners. So that is why we're here in this mutual assistance. And then Emmanuel says, with that comes reciprocal responsibility. It's imperative, he says, that in that mutual assistance, it's important. However, that connection is based on reciprocal responsibility, that responsibility for both sides. Since in that communion, a human being gives themselves to another being for the very reason there should be no disregard for each other. And friends, this is where our relationships fail. Because after that enchantment at the beginning, the fairy tale, we eat, as we say in Portuguese, the 1 kilo of salt together, right? Do you have that expression in English? We say that you don't know, right? But in Brazil, we say you don't truly know someone until you live with them and you eat a kilo of salt together, meaning you are there in the day to day, and that's when things will start to show up. So he's saying there's this reciprocal responsibility, but if we disregard the partner, how are we gonna build that? It's so hard. And that's when relationships fail. Divorce rates are over 50% now. So how are we gonna teach our next generation that we are here? We are here. That's where we learn Spiritism, to work on those relationships. If we say, well, from 10 people who get married, 5 might go through a divorce. So there's nothing wrong. We're not here to judge, but we are here to build our awareness for us to succeed in this life. For not in the first trouble, we want to jump off the ship because it's so easy to look at the grass. The grass is always greener. Who is single wants to be in a relationship. Who is in a relationship wants to be single. And then we're never happy, right? Never happy. All because the friends, their relationship is perfect. That, but we turn, and unfortunately, right, social media, right, friends, we have to use the tools of technology. We know technology is here to help us, but let us not be eluded by what is in social media, right? How many people I know personally, friends of mine, who are going through deep troubles in their relationships? But oh no, on Facebook, on Instagram, oh my gosh, it's the perfect relationship. But if people knew the behind the scenes, oh my gosh, they would be scared. Because they fight 1 minute, the next minute they're posting a picture together. Right? So how are we based our relationships on that? And then we look at that and say, oh, my relationship is failing. I need to look for another partner. I need to look for something else because this is not right. So let us not be eluded. Thanks to Spiritism, we know that relationships are hard. Emmanuel says in his books that 95 or more percent of relationships come for us to address mistakes of the past. So that Cinderella story is for the very, 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 very few. It's like the exception of the exception of the exception. So the majority, we're here to expiate. Is that bad? No, should we say, oh, I don't want to get into relationships. On the contrary, that's why we're reincarnated. So let us go back to Angele. Where did she fail? Because that's where we fail in our relationships. She says that her kids and her husband bored her. And remember, boredom, the first line, she was frustrated, disenchanted, she didn't believe in the marriage. So what? She looked for, she says, right? That what did she do? She looks for other distractions. Oh, nowadays what it is. Oh, I'm gonna travel and or those who dive at work and they're like, I'm gonna work, and then the family's there. Yeah, I check in once in a while, but I'm working. So where does this boredom comes from? The sentiment that okay, we're there in the routine, we're there, but we don't have that appreciation for the other person anymore. Okay, Emmanuel explained this to us. It starts with our selfishness. It's when we want to be served, we want the other person to understand us, to forgive us. But when we have to do that, we're like, no. So because we, quote unquote, are not receiving what we want, then we get into the state of inertia or idleness or boredom. The other person is not investing in the relationship. I'm not going to invest in the relationship. If they don't care, why would I care? And then from that, it takes us to boredom. And then we get into this cycle. Okay, before we go to the remedy, let's dive deeper. Because we need to understand what happens if we enter in this mode, like Angele. What will happen to us? Well, Emmanuel says, in those mutual responsibilities that we have, when we fall into the trap of boredom, of inertia, we break that. That's not respected. And the relationship is misused, broken. We might leave the relationship or we might be there physically but not care anymore. And it usually causes deep suffering. For who? For ourselves. That leads to karmic consequences that can be very difficult to resolve. Because remember, no one harms one another without harming themselves. So we are creating, in other words, this karma for ourselves. What we do to others, we're going to receive. So if we don't care anymore, if we're not investing, if we are not putting the effort, at the end of the day, we're harming ourselves. Because Emmanuel says, if we don't work out the relationship in this life, we're gonna have to reincarnate again and again and again, as many times as we need it. And we want to run away from the person. Maybe next life they're not gonna be maybe our partner, like husband or wife, but they might be our children. They might be our parents. They might be our twin sibling, because then there's no way to run away. Because you're gonna have to be by their side, doesn't matter what. So if we are in that aspect in this life, is for us to work on it. He says there are no effective unions, whatever they may be, without reasons of karmic principles, in which our responsibilities are espoused in common. What he's saying? He's saying we don't meet anyone by chance. Anyone. So that story that we hear, oh, it was just one night stand and I got pregnant. Was that by chance? In Spiritism, we learn no. Oh, I was at that party and I met that person on that barbecue. Was that by chance that you were there? No. We would meet who we need to meet. Because, as we talk, remember in previous lives, those relationships, now we need to come back and readdress them. And if we do that here, as we just saw, we're going to have to continue in the next slide. So Emmanuel asked the spirits, Emmanuel brings us the answer, the spirits, through Chico Xavier. He says, okay, who is the husband that now doesn't want to commit to the family, who doesn't want to stay there? Well, in previous life, that husband, and he's talking husband, can be husband or wife, that person was probably our son or daughter that we taught to disregard. And now they come back as our partner. So most likely not, we taught that person to be that way. Who is the crazy wife now? Who was she in previous life? In previous life, she was the young girl or woman who, because of, our actions, we pushed to the abyss, breaking her heart. Now she comes back as our wife in this crazy thing. Why? Because in the past we hurt that person. This is all to say that we have an account. So we come back in now this partnership to address those karmic that we create in the past. So it's the law of action and reaction. We receive what we give. So this helps us, friends, because then we enter our relationships, we don't feel like victims anymore. Oh my gosh, my partner is this and that and the other. We're not saying for those extreme cases of domestic violence that, the person's just gonna bow their head, except that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking our day-to-day, most cases, right? Because those are extreme cases, but we're talking about cases where there is that friction in the relationship for us to understand who we were in previous lives. It's not by chance that we are together. And this helps us re-signify the relationship. Saying, okay, there's a reason why we're here. There's a reason we have a family. So let us work on those mutual relationships. So what is the remedy, dear friends? Because, yes, it's easy to say, but hard to implement, we know. But that's why we're here. We're here to succeed. Remember, in this life, before we talk about this, We have a reincarnatory plan, right? The plan is there for us. A lot of times, most of the times, those relationships were already planned in the spiritual realm. We're gonna come back. The children we're gonna receive. So, but at the end of the day, to succeed, yes, we need to help others. We need to not only focus on that, but the family circle is the first thing you need to succeed in this relationship. Because the home, Emmanuel says, is the first school. So what we do, we prepare our children or our nephew and nieces, and we say, look, we write so much. Tell them, you need to study, you need to get into the great universities. Parents save, right? They save to the children to go to the best colleges. But are we teaching them to succeed in that plan? We need to master our relationships. Because they can go to Harvard, they can go to Stanford, they can get a Nobel Prize. But if they don't succeed in those relationships, like Andrea Lewis, they will fail in life. Andrea Lewis, friends, was Carlos Chagas. He was a pioneer in science. He changed all our lives in this room for his discovery in science. But he got to the spiritual realm and he saw that none of that mattered because he did not succeed in his relationships. So we teach our children like we do inside. We start with the small things, caring for one another. If they are not loving and kind at home, how they gonna be loving and kind with their partners if they don't see the parents being loving and kind and building that at home? How they gonna mimic that in their relationships? And then what happened? We see nowadays this crazy cases, right? The boyfriend that didn't accept that the girlfriend wants to break up, and he goes to her work and kills her. The husband that the wife wants to get divorced that brutally kill her. So on and so forth. How did we get to that point? Who were the parents of those children? Because you need to learn at home. We need to teach the next generation by our examples, because we can say it out loud, but if they don't see that at home, they're gonna mimic what they see. So we need to teach them to do what? Transform that boredom in the relationship into effort. Let's reinvent it. This is not working. Let's reinvent. Let us, think about other ideas. There are different phases in the relationship. What worked in the past doesn't work now. Let us think about it together. Let us leave this self-centeredness of wanting to receive to actually giving to the person. Because we also teach our partners through our example. Let us leave this stagnation and reinvent ourselves. This is how we're going to succeed. It's not about saying, oh, but I stayed in the relationship. I didn't get divorced, but then we checked out for 50, 30 years, and we were not there, emotionally speaking. So Emmanuel's saying, let us invest on it. And friends, this is the most important thing. We can buy the house, the car. We can have all the different titles. We can be the CEO of the company, but none of that really matters if we don't work on this at home. This is why we reincarnated. So let us reflect on this week. Today is a call for us. Where a time where our planet is going through so much, right? We see war, so many things happen. Let us focus in building that at home, because we're not going to accomplish that between countries and presidents if we don't start at home. That's the next generation right there. They will be the next presidents, the next CEOs. They will be doing policies for the future. So if we don't teach them to do that in our homes and for ourselves, we're going to get to the spiritual realm like Angele, where in the eyes of society, you saw she didn't do any wrong. She wasn't a criminal. She didn't kill anyone. But the most important line in her reincarnatory plan that they explain, she came to be working the family. She failed. And then she's in the state where she says she's not suffering because she associates suffering with the physical body, but she's suffering because she's in the state of completely being lost in the spiritual realm. And she's suffering. So we don't want that. And we don't know, but we can already imagine she's gonna have to reincarnate again with her family members again. But remember, the next life will be much harder. And for us that we have spiritism, it's not the punishment, but it's our conscience because we know better. So for us, it will be even harder. So let us not wait for next life. Let us start today, shall we? So Jesus is our guide and model. He said, let us give to others what we like to receive. If we tell ourselves and remind ourselves that every day, we never go wrong. So let us reflect on this, dear friends, as we redeem the lights and we start preparing ourselves for the passes, okay? and visualize this best friend that He is enveloping all of us in this healing light. Dear Mother, Father God, we visualize Master Jesus with us, enveloping us in renewal, in new strength and protection. So keep visualizing our best friend, Master Jesus, with us, delivering the energy medicine that we did to protect and strengthen us, mind and bodies. Let us all visualize a shower of healing light falling upon us, breathing in and out and accepting this loving energy medicine that is now being provided to us. Let us all now visualize the loving spirit doctors giving to us flowers of healing. Let us, all of us, receive these flowers of healing, breathing in the perfume of calmness and letting go of the toxins of the mind and the bodies. Once again, let's help one another, visualizing that the good spirits are asking us to give one of those flowers they gave us. Let us offer it, a peace flower, to someone in our lives with which we need to reconcile. Let us visualize Master Jesus with us in this moment of reconciliation. Let us all now express our deepest gratitude to God for life, for this reincarnation. Dear God, we're deeply grateful that you, in your kindness and infinite mercy, granted to us renewed opportunities, and especially this reincarnation. We may not recall the reincarnatory plan, but we're sure that we're being guided towards the fulfillment of your loving will. May we be ever more diligent in our daily lives as we now visualize our home being bathed by your healing light, especially our bedrooms, our dining room, our living room. We visualize loving and kind spirit doctors with Master Jesus visiting our homes, and providing us with balance and security. We also visualize the shower of healing light at work, in our children's schools, enveloping our means of transportation from school buses to cars, metro, cab drivers, and we visualize a beautiful earth, all of us fulfilling your loving will. With your permission, we close this service in deep gratitude for the remedies we have received for the mind and the bodies. All right. So just a few announcements. This coming Friday, we're gonna wrap up the last 5 chapters of the book Workers of Life Eternal, right? Mr. John's gonna bring the cake to celebrate, right? So even if you are not reading but if you want to stop by, you can, because we're all gonna learn, all right? And then next Saturday, we were supposed to be at the homeless, but we've got to know that there is a No King protest scheduled for that very day throughout our nation. And we don't want to take the risk, okay? We don't want to take the risk of being there and on that day because it's very complex, especially in those parks. We are two blocks away from the White House. So the best way to go is to postpone to the following one, which is going to be the 4th, April 4th. So for those who signed up, please let us know. Let Daisy know if you can still commit to the 4th of April or not. All right. And let's pray, right, for peaceful protest